the veil of illusion, choosing wisdom over folly. Lucas stared at the flickering screen of his phone, his thumb hovering over the notifications that had piled up since the afternoon. He glanced around his tiny studio apartment, the chipped paint, the old couch sagging in the middle, and the stack of books he'd meant to read but never got around to. It was too quiet here, and his chest's restlessness only grew heavier with each passing hour. Little did he know, this restlessness was the first whisper of a desire for change, a longing for something more than the mundane routine of his days. It had been months since Lucas had moved to the city, hoping for a fresh start, a chance to build something new. He had a job, enough to pay the bills, but his days felt like a constant loop of the same tasks, the same people, and the same empty promises that maybe, someday, things would be different. That someday felt further and further away, and tonight, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was stuck in place while the rest of the world moved forward. With a sigh, Lucas threw on his jacket and headed out into the night. The streets were alive with neon lights, buzzing conversations, and the sounds of music drifting from every corner. He didn't know where he was going, just that he needed to get out, to find something that made him feel alive again. Lucas turned a corner, and there she was, a woman standing under the glow of a streetlight, her silhouette framed against the city's skyline. She had an effortless grace, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders, and when her eyes met his, a spark of recognition made his heart skip. "Hey," she said, her voice smooth and warm, with just a hint of mischief. "You look lost." Lucas chuckled, feeling the tension in his chest ease just a little. "Maybe I am. Just trying to get some air, you know." The woman smiled, her eyes twinkling. "I'm Mira, and I think I know exactly what you need." Before he could respond, she motioned for him to follow her. Something about her presence was magnetic, and without thinking, Lucas found himself trailing after her, winding through streets he barely recognized until they arrived at a dimly lit bar between two tall buildings. "Come on," she said, her smile widening as she pushed open the door. "Let's get you out of your head for a bit." The bar was unlike any place Lucas had ever been. The lights were low, casting a warm glow over the room, and the air buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, and the faint scent of perfume. Mira led him to a booth in the corner, her movements smooth and assured, as if she owned the place. She ordered drinks without asking what he wanted, and when they arrived, she raised her glass excitedly. "To new adventures," she said, her voice like honey. Lucas hesitated, but clinked his glass against hers. As he took a sip, he felt a strange thrill ripple. This wasn't the life he knew. This was something else entirely. Mira was a mystery, a glimpse into a world he had only ever dreamed of. And as the night wore on, he found himself captivated by her stories of lavish parties, hidden rooftops, and secret spots only the city's elite knew about. It was a world of allure, adventure, and excitement he had never experienced. For the first time in months, Lucas felt alive. Here, with Mira, he felt like someone else, someone bold, daring, and accessible. The more she talked, the more he wanted to follow her, to step into the world she was offering him. "So," Mira said, leaning in close, her eyes bright with excitement, "what do you say? Are you up for an adventure?" Lucas nodded, the last traces of hesitation melting away. "Lead the way." As days turned into weeks, Mira introduced Lucas to a side of the city he had only ever heard about in passing. She took him to exclusive clubs where the drinks flowed freely, where laughter echoed against the walls, and where no one cared about the mundane worries that weighed Lucas down. He felt like he was living someone else's life, an escape from the small, tired world he had grown so weary of. The allure of this new world was undeniable, a seductive call to leave behind the familiar and embrace the unknown. But there was a cost. The glamorous parties and late nights took a toll, leaving him financially and emotionally drained. Mira seemed unfazed, brushing off his concerns with a laugh and a shrug. You worry too much, Lucas. Life's about enjoying the moment, not planning every little thing. Yet, despite her reassurances, a nagging doubt grew in Lucas's mind. He thought of the small comforts he had left behind in his favorite coffee shop, his walks in the park, and the conversations with friends who knew him before he had entered this glittering world. The thrill of this new life was beginning to wear thin, replaced by a strange emptiness long after the parties ended. Yet, despite her reassurances, a nagging doubt grew in Lucas's mind. He thought of the small comforts he had left behind, his favorite coffee shop, his walks in the park, the conversations with friends who knew him before he had entered this glittering world. The thrill he had felt was beginning to wear thin, replaced by a strange emptiness long after the parties ended. The contrast between his old life and the new one with Mira was stark, leaving him with a sense of tension and uncertainty. One evening, Lucas's phone buzzed with a message from Aaron, an old friend and mentor who had known him since college. They had met through a volunteer program where Aaron had become like an older brother to Lucas, guiding him through the ups and downs of young adulthood. Aaron's message was simple but pointed. Haven't heard from you in a while. Let's catch up. Lucas hesitated, feeling a pang of guilt. He had distanced himself from Aaron and his other friends, wrapped up in his whirlwind with Mira. But something in Aaron's message stirred him, a reminder of the values he had once held close. He agreed to meet for coffee the next day, a quiet pang of relief settling in his chest. The comfort of familiar connections was a welcome relief amid his turbulent journey. When he arrived at the cafe, Aaron was waiting, his expression severe but warm. As they sat down, Aaron wasted no time. You look different, Lucas, he said, his gaze steady. Where have you been? Lucas tried to brush it off, to laugh it away, but Aaron's eyes held a weight that made him pause. I met someone, Lucas admitted. She's different. She's opened my eyes to a whole new side of life. Aaron leaned back, his expression thoughtful. And what's that side like? It's exciting, Lucas said, his voice wavering. It's freeing. Aaron nodded, but there was sadness in his eyes. Sometimes, the things that feel free at the moment are the very things that trap us later on. Be careful, Lucas. Not everything that shines is worth chasing. Lucas felt his chest tighten, Aaron's words cutting through the haze that had clouded his mind. He knew Aaron was right, knew it in a way that went beyond words. But as much as he wanted to pull away, the allure of Myra's world was hard to resist. It was a Friday night, and Mira had invited Lucas to another party at a penthouse overlooking the city. The night was as dazzling as ever, filled with laughter, drinks, and the sparkling lights of the skyline. But something was different this time. Lucas felt a strange detachment, as if he were watching everything through a fogged window, unable to shake the feeling that he was out of place. At one point, he wandered into a quieter corner of the room, and that's when he overheard Myra's voice. She was laughing with a friend, her tone casual but laced with a hint of sarcasm. He's just another guy looking for an escape, Mira said, her voice indifferent. They all are. It's kind of cute, honestly. Lucas froze, the words slicing through him like a knife. He felt a wave of shock, embarrassment, and a growing sense of anger. All this time, he had thought Mira saw something in him, that she had opened the door to a world he was meant to be part of. But now, he saw the truth. He had been nothing more than a distraction, a passing amusement in her life. He turned and walked out of the penthouse, the cool night air hitting his face as he stumbled into the street. He felt the emptiness he had been ignoring finally settle over him, a hollow ache that left him feeling smaller than ever. As he walked through the quiet streets, Lucas remembered Aaron's words, "Not everything that shines is worth chasing." He felt a rush of shame, knowing that he had abandoned his values for a glittering illusion that had left him feeling more lost than ever. For the first time, Lucas saw Myra's world for what it was, a beautiful, hollow illusion that had pulled him away from everything that mattered. The excitement, glamour, and thrill of it all were empty promises, distractions that had kept him from seeing the truth. And in that moment, something inside him shifted. With it, he felt the fog lift and a sense of clarity he hadn't felt in months. He knew what he had to do. The following day, Lucas reached out to Aaron. They met at the same cafe, and Lucas laid everything out, the allure of Myra's world, how he had been pulled in, and the emptiness he now felt. Aaron listened patiently, his expression calm. When Lucas finished, Aaron gave him a reassuring smile. "You're not the first to get caught up in an illusion, Lucas. But the important thing is that you've seen through it. That's a rare kind of wisdom." Lucas felt a weight lift from his chest, a sense of relief washing over him. With Aaron's guidance, he began to rebuild, reconnecting with old friends and finding purpose in the things he had once taken for granted. He focused on his work, volunteering again, and setting new goals aligned with his values. In time, Lucas found himself feeling more grounded than ever. He no longer chased after fleeting thrills. Instead, he looked for meaning in his own life, choosing to build rather than escape. He understood that true freedom wasn't about escaping reality, but embracing it, finding joy in the things that mattered. As he walked the city's familiar streets, Lucas felt a quiet peace settle over him, a peace that came from living in alignment with his values, from seeing past the illusions that had once led him astray. He knew that he had found something far more valuable than excitement. He had found the strength to choose the path of wisdom that would guide him for the rest of his life. As the years passed, Lucas continued to walk the path of wisdom. He had found a peace that didn't rely on excitement or illusion, a peace that came from knowing he was living in alignment with his true self. He became a mentor to others, sharing his story and helping them see the beauty of a life lived in truth. Lucas had seen the allure of illusion and chosen to walk away. In doing so, he had found something far more precious, a life of purpose, meaning, and peace. As he reflected on his journey, he knew that this was the reward of wisdom, a life built on a foundation of truth, guided by the light within. Embracing the voice of wisdom, discovering true purpose. Sarah tapped her fingers on the desk, staring blankly at her computer screen as the steady hum of the office buzzed around her. It was another Monday morning, and the weight of routine settled over her shoulders like a thick fog. She had a good job by most people's standards. She made enough to live comfortably, had benefits, and even managed to save a little each month. But there was a hollowness to it all, an ache in her chest that reminded her she wasn't where she wanted to be. Her days were a monotonous cycle of meetings and endless emails, organizing other people's schedules, and completing tasks that seemed to blend into one long stream of sameness. She knew she should feel grateful, but all she felt was a restless dissatisfaction, a yearning for something more. She thought there must be more than this, glancing at the digital clock on her screen as it ticked down the minutes of another workday. She was in her early 30s, and the weight of unfulfilled dreams loomed over her. As a kid, she dreamed of being an artist, creating things that made people feel alive. But somewhere along the way, practicality had taken over, and her dreams had been filed away in the drawer of someday. Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a message from Rachel, an old friend she hadn't seen in years. "Hey, Sarah. There's an opening for a volunteer artist for a community mural project. I thought of you. It's unpaid, but it could be something special. Let me know if you're interested." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She had almost forgotten how much she loved art, how much it had once meant to her. The idea of working on a mural, of pouring herself into something creative and meaningful, tugged at her in a way she hadn't felt in years. But then the practical voice in her mind cut in. It's unpaid. You can't just drop everything for something that won't pay the bills. She closed the message, telling herself it was a nice thought but unrealistic. Yet, even as she tried to push it aside, the invitation lingered in her mind, a spark of light on an otherwise gray day. As she walked home that evening, Sarah felt a strange pull, a quiet voice urging her to consider the invitation more seriously. She had ignored this voice for years, brushing it aside in favor of practicality and security. But tonight, the voice was louder, almost insistent, whispering that this was her chance to break free from the routine that had left her so empty. With a deep breath, Sarah picked up her phone and replied to Rachel's message. But as she did, a wave of nostalgia and regret washed over her. She had once been so full of dreams, so sure of her path, but life had a way of steering her in a different direction. Now, she felt like a stranger to the part of herself that had once felt alive. With a deep breath, Sarah picked up her phone and replied to Rachel's message. I'm in. The next few days passed in a blur of emails, meetings, and the usual routine, but something had shifted within Sarah. She felt a flicker of excitement, a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, she was stepping onto a new path. But with each moment of excitement came a wave of doubt. She spent her lunch break sketching ideas for the mural, feeling the thrill of creativity she hadn't experienced in years. But as the days wore on, the practical voice in her mind grew louder. You can't afford to take a break from your job, her colleague Julie commented one afternoon, noticing her distraction. People would kill for the security you have here. Sarah nodded, trying to brush off the doubts in her mind. Everyone around her seemed to value stability, and she couldn't deny its comfort. But the voice within her kept whispering, urging her to consider what she wanted out of life. That evening, Sarah visited Mr. Garvey, her former art professor who had always encouraged her to follow her passion. He had been more than a teacher, he had been a mentor, someone who saw the potential in her when she had doubted herself. They hadn't spoken in years, but something told her he would understand her struggle. Mr. Garvey welcomed her warmly, his art studio a haven of creativity and color. As they sat down, Sarah poured out her feelings about her restlessness and dissatisfaction with her job and pulled toward the mural project. She knew Mr. Garvey would understand, just as he always had. He had been more than a teacher, he had been a mentor, someone who saw the potential in her when she had doubted herself. Sarah, Mr. Garvey said, his voice gentle, the choice you're facing isn't easy. But it's important. True peace doesn't come from staying comfortable. It comes from aligning yourself with your purpose. He paused, looking her in the eyes. What does your heart tell you? Sarah felt a lump rise in her throat, but she knew the answer. Her heart was telling her to take the leap, to trust the quiet voice of wisdom that had been guiding her all along. Mr. Garvey smiled as if he could see the answer written on her face. Then listen to it. The path of wisdom may not be easy, but it's the only path that leads to real fulfillment. Sarah walked into her boss's office the following week and submitted her resignation. Her boss looked at her with a mix of surprise and confusion, but Sarah remained resolute. She explained that she wanted to pursue something more meaningful and was ready to find a new direction. The weight of her decision hung heavy in the air, but she knew it was the right one. As she left the building for the last time, a strange mix of emotions washed over her. She felt fear, excitement, and a deep sense of relief as if a weight she had been carrying for years had finally lifted. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she felt free. The mural project began the following week, and Sarah threw herself into the work. She spent hours sketching, painting, and collaborating with Rachel and the community members who the mural would impact. There was a joy in the work she hadn't felt in years, a sense of purpose that made the long hours worth it. But the path wasn't without challenges. Bills piled up, and the financial strain weighed on her more than she expected. She faced criticism from friends and family who questioned her decision to leave a stable job, and moments of doubt crept in, whispering that maybe she had made a mistake. But each time she felt the pull of doubt, the voice within her reminded her of why she had chosen this path. She had followed wisdom's call and couldn't turn back now. One evening, as Sarah stood back to admire the nearly completed mural, she felt emotion wash over her. The mural was a tribute to the community's history, a blend of colors and stories that spoke to the resilience and beauty of the people who called it home. She felt a sense of clarity, a vision of herself as a part of something greater, something meaningful. At that moment, Sarah understood that true fulfillment didn't come from external achievements or material success. It came from living in alignment with one's values, embracing the light within, and letting it guide each step. As the mural project drew to a close, Sarah connected with people in a way she hadn't before. Community members stopped by to share their stories and thank her for creating something that reflected their lives and struggles. She felt a sense of belonging, a connection to her work that she had never experienced in her old job. Her life wasn't perfect. She still faced financial challenges, and there were days when doubt crept in. But the peace she felt in her heart was undeniable. She knew she was on the right path and living aligned with her purpose. Sarah's work on the mural expressed the divine spark within her. She felt a profound connection to her purpose, knowing she was living a life that honored her true self. She saw her work's impact on others, and in their gratitude, she found a reflection of the peace she had discovered within herself. She reached out to old friends who understood her journey, finding strength in the community and a renewed appreciation for those who supported her. She realized true friendship was a gift, a reminder of the light that wisdom had brought into her life. As Sarah reflected on her journey, she felt a deep gratitude. She had chosen the path of wisdom, and in doing so, she had found a peace that transcended the security of her old life. She understood that true wealth wasn't measured in material success. It was found in living a life of purpose, in honoring the light within. She created a community art program, dedicating herself to helping others discover their path to fulfillment. She knew that the journey of wisdom wasn't about achieving a single goal. It was a lifetime of choices, each leading her closer to her true self. Sarah's life became a testament to the power of wisdom. She now understood that true peace came from aligning with her inner truth and living a life that honored her values. Her work touched others, and in sharing her journey, she hoped to inspire others to listen to the quiet voice within them, to trust the wisdom that guided them toward purpose and fulfillment. She had found her path and, with it, a joy and peace that went beyond anything she had ever known. The voice of wisdom had led her home. The invitation of two roads. The town of Everhill was bustling with life on a golden autumn morning as Lena arrived in the town square, her heart set on change. She had always felt restless in her quiet hometown, sensing a pull toward something bigger, but unsure precisely what. That morning, two invitations arrived, each promising guidance on her journey. Curious, Lena opened the first invitation. In an elegant script, it read, "You are warmly invited to the House of Wisdom. Here, you will find insight, guidance, and understanding to help you walk the path of true joy." The second invitation looked similar, but had an edge of mystery. "Come to the House of Folly, where you can enjoy freedom without rules and explore the world on your terms. No limits, no questions, just you." She frowned, turning both cards over in her hands. Each invitation seemed to pull at a different part of her, offering two vastly different ways forward. Drawn by an urge to understand both, Lena set out to visit each house, hoping that in doing so, she might learn something that would bring clarity to her life. Little did she know, each house held much more than met the eye. The path to the House of Wisdom wound up a gentle hill, surrounded by trees whose leaves glowed amber and red in the morning light. As Lena neared the estate, she felt a calm warmth settle over her as if she were being welcomed into an old friend's home. The door opened before she could knock, and a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile stood before her. The woman's presence was as peaceful as the morning itself. "Welcome, Lena," she said, her voice soft and knowing. "I am Wisdom. Come in, child. There's much to share if you're willing." Lena stepped inside, marveling at the house's serenity. The walls were adorned with beautiful paintings, books of all sizes filled every shelf, and the scent of lavender filled the air. "Please, make yourself comfortable," Wisdom invited, leading her to a large room with expansive windows overlooking the valley. Sunlight poured in, bathing the room in a warm glow. Wisdom handed Lena a cup of tea as they sat and began to speak, but not of herself. She asked Lena gentle, searching questions. "What do you value, Lena? What is it you most seek?" Lena hesitated. I'm not sure," she admitted. "I want to be happy, I think. To live a good life, to be free. But sometimes I don't know what any of that means." Wisdom nodded, her gaze steady. "True joy, child, comes from knowing yourself and aligning with what is good, true, and enduring. Have you thought about what brings you lasting peace?" Lena thought for a long moment. "Sometimes when I'm with my family or helping others, I feel that peace. But sometimes I get caught up in what everyone else is doing. I feel like I should be reaching for more somehow." Wisdom's smile was patient. "Many feel that way. But consider this. Joy doesn't come from what you have or even what you do, but from who you choose to become. When we seek to grow in kindness, compassion, and truth, we find joy no one can take away." Wisdom led her through the house, introducing her to others who had once been where Lena was. Each person shared stories of their journeys toward meaning. Some had come seeking fame, others comfort, but all had eventually found contentment in simple virtues and purposeful living. When Lena left the House of Wisdom, her heart felt lighter, yet her mind brimming with questions. A sense of clarity formed within her, though she could not yet put it into words. The next day, Lena set off to find the House of Folly, eager to understand the other invitation. The path was shrouded in mist, winding through a dense forest where shadows danced between the trees. She felt a strange thrill as she neared the tall estate, which had an air of mystery and neglect. At the door stood a glamorous woman with flashing eyes and a mischievous grin. "Welcome, my dear," she called, sweeping Lena inside. "I am Folly. You're in for a treat here. No rules, no limits. You're free to do anything you like." Lena stepped into a room that was dazzling yet disorienting. Rich foods and drinks overflowed on every table, music played loudly, and people danced with abandon. Folly beckoned Lena to join, filling a glass and handing it to her. "Here, you can be whoever you want," Folly winked. "You don't need anyone's approval. Just go with whatever feels right." For a time, Lena tried to let go and embrace the freedom Folly promised. She danced and laughed, feeling a rush of excitement. But as the day wore on, she noticed a strange emptiness among Folly's guests. Though their laughter was loud, it felt hollow. No one truly looked at each other, and conversation seemed shallow, lacking warmth or care. Sitting to catch her breath, Lena began to feel uneasy. Folly approached her, raising an eyebrow. "What's wrong? You look like you're not having fun anymore." I thought this would make me feel free, Lena said slowly. But something feels off. It's like everyone here is trying to fill some emptiness. Folly shrugged, her grin fading. Who needs meaning when you have fun? Just keep moving, Lena. Don't think too much, it'll only hold you back. But as Lena watched the people around her, she realized that none of them looked truly happy. They were caught in a cycle of seeking thrills, yet the emptiness never seemed to leave them. That evening, Lena returned to the town square, feeling torn. Wisdom's words echoed in her heart, but Folly's promises lingered, too. She looked at the paths leading to each house, feeling the weight of her choice. Just then, she noticed an older man sitting nearby, speaking to a young traveler. The beginning of wisdom, he said, is knowing what truly matters and choosing it, even when it's hard. Lena felt a spark ignite within her. She knew where she belonged. With a steady breath, she turned her back on the house of Folly and walked up the path to Wisdom's door again. Wisdom welcomed her with open arms, and Lena felt peace settle over her heart like the gentle evening light. In time, Lena grew into a role of guidance in her town, helping others see that joy comes not from fleeting pleasures, but from walking a path that brings light to the soul. As she lived, she became a beacon for others, reflecting the wisdom she had chosen.